Welcome to Align and Embrace, where over 50 years of combined clinical experience meet a commitment to cultural humility and social change.
In this episode, you'll hear from the Align and Embrace founders about their passion for this work, why they started this business, and what the Clinicians for Cultures movement is all about.
What inspired the name Align and Embrace? Where did that come from?
So, Align and Embrace is a combination of Align and Thrive, which is my company, and Embrace Life, which is Dr. Kara's company. And I'll speak to Align and Thrive. My vision around Align and Thrive, Align and Thrive is really supporting individuals with aligning with their peace, their harmony, their sense of self, their sense of self-worthiness, self-efficacy, so that they can thrive in their life, in any element of their lives. Dr. Kara, tell us about Embrace Life.
Yes, I really selected Embrace Life because I feel like often we have a hard time embracing where we're at, and all of it is a part of a journey. And so, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's consulting, public speaking, um, you know, therapy, coaching, embracing life, I think is a critical aspect. So, everyone's life looks different, and being able to embrace where you're at in those moments, it's really important to growth and to accomplishing whatever it is that's ahead of you. I think when we talked about names and we thought about how do we do this and we brought it together as a joint venture, Align and Embrace, I think really embodies where we're trying to go. We want people to align with these practices, align with shifting systems, align with this movement and embrace it. Again, because when you embrace it, it becomes a way, not just like an added thing that you're doing for that moment, but you're embracing it, you're embodying it. And I think that is really where we want to go as a company. And the name really embodies all of the goals, the ambitions, the movement, the change that we want to see. We want people to align and embrace their health, their wealth, and their wellness. And they're all related to each other. If you don't have health, it's going to be hard to have wellness. If you don't have wealth, it'll be hard to have wellness. All of these things. And wealth is, yes, monetary and in so many aspects of life. It doesn't have to be a dollar, right? The dollar doesn't have to be on it. We want this as well, and wealth in all areas. So really wealth represents abundance, I think, in a mindset and how, and a spirit and a soul and how we show up individually and collectively.
And the blend is so beautiful that the Thrive and Align and Thrive and the Life and Embrace Life still mirrors and marries very well, so that all you said, so folks can thrive in their life and support even others' ability to thrive in their lives.
Yes. And I also want to mention that we talk about the end user, when you think in business terms, which would be the client, consumer, participant. We use these words interchangeably. And we cannot forget that people who are serving individuals also have needs. They also need to align and embrace. They also have to recalibrate. They also need support. And it's so important that they have that. And our business is really designed to, again, take that multi-pronged approach. So we're not leaving anyone out of the mix. We're considering the end user, the patient, the consumer, the client, the participant, and we're considering the individuals who make up the systems. And then we're considering the structure. So as we take that approach, we can help align and embrace cultural informed, cultural responsive, and a high level of cultural humility into organizations, systems, providers, and also have it impact, hopefully in a positive way, the clients, the consumers, the participants.
Mhm. You're making
What measurable impact has Align and Embrace had in its field and on the clients? So, meaning, how have you positively affected the communities or industries that you serve thus far?
I'm going to say that we have not only built a program and built business around supporting practitioners, providers, and systems, we also are advancing the field with our emerging cultural cultivators. And I think right now that's probably like our biggest impact. And it also has given us our greatest learnings for how we need to pivot in the work that we're doing to make sure that our business is really tapping into the needs of the systems of the providers and for the end user, again, making sure that what we're doing to support the businesses and the organizations and the providers, making sure that they have what's needed to positively impact the outcome. So that would-
Yeah, I would agree. I was thinking about the emerging culture cultivators, which are master level students from University of Michigan, um, has graciously trusted us with supporting those individuals who are going to be service providers in the healthcare industry, an opportunity to learn in community with them, and support them with providing clinical supervision, group supervision, around the macro component of the work, the systems, the workforce, and also, um, as Kara mentioned, the receiver of the services. And we've learned so much, and they have helped us expand our thinking around the needs, some of the importance of what goes into our services and supports. And I was thinking back, Dr. Kara, when you were talking about being an end user and how your experiences receiving healthcare support, some of our emerging culture cultivators, our interns have shared experiences that have occurred. Of course, I've shared my own personal experiences of the impact that non-culturally responsive care and support has had on us and our families and our loved ones. And so it keeps us very much close to the work on both sides of the spectrum. And I just love how they brought us into expanding our thinking around that.
Definitely. And recognizing that people are going to get education, people are gathering experiences from work, and they still need that ongoing support. And the organizations need the support because this is not something that is like akin or, embedded in our culture. What we want to do is really shift the paradigm, shift the culture, shift the organizational structures so that we are leveling the playing field, right? Flattening the power dynamics, flattening the inequities, and really making an equitable system that's going to generate positive health outcomes for everyone. And that leads us back to our name, align and embrace, but we do it by aligning and embracing health, wealth, and wellness.
Absolutely.
Okay. How do you ensure your approach is both informative and transformative for your participants?
We have done lots of needs assessments, environmental scans, really, pulling from literature, pulling from surveys, looking at surveys that have already been done, doing a active review on surveys that have been done, and looking at what the data and the research say. Also taking information from people who have lived experience in education systems, in human service organizations, in healthcare settings to really determine where the need is and how do we best support that need. So the transformation comes in looking at where people are and taking an organization-centered or a person-centered approach to supporting, and then looking at where they want to be, and then supporting them from an intrinsic stance again, because we can go into any organization, we don't belong to that organization. So we would be tapping in, we would be doing assessments, we'll be utilizing the most recent literature and best practices, knowing though that each organization is going to be different. And some of the practices may need to be adapted or catered to their environments, or they may need to create their own practices, assuring that they are embracing again, and advancing culturally informed and responsive care, looking at the end user, meaning health outcomes, and increasing and improving what that looks like for their organization and for the providers within.
Mhm. Mhm. And it takes time to develop this multicultural, equitable lens and paradigm. It does take time. And that is why a learning community is instrumental in the sustainability of these practices, of these processes, because it's a muscle that has to be continuously developed over time. And even if you look at the social landscape, you will see clearly that there is a large sector of folks who don't think culturally responsive care is important. And we see that health outcomes because of that. And we understand how important it is for this to be a lifelong journey, because there will be peaks and valleys in terms of how society feels that work is important. And we know that it's important. And so we are committed to continuing the journey. And there are millions of folks who understand the significance of this work. And so our movement to bring aboard over 1 million culturally responsive clinicians is something that we daily aspire to do.
Definitely. And doing that in a way that provides people a space. We build confidence, we build connection within communities, within organizations, across providers, within provider groups to offer a place that they can come, that they can build psychological safety so they can lean into whatever the experience is that's necessary and experience the discomfort knowing they have people that are there to support them and getting on the other side, because no one's going to get it right. And we want to make sure that as people have community, have opportunities for practical application, they also can come back and share what that looks like, what that feels like. Sometimes we don't know if we got it right, and sometimes we
Mhm.
don't get it right, and that's okay. Still being supported, still knowing that you can come somewhere and you can talk about it and you can figure out, how can I do this differently the next time so that I do get to the place that I want to be. It's, I
Mhm.
think, a value that it's really like tremendous, and also it's not a common thing that's being offered.
Mhm.
So when you, Raquel, you talked about aligning the 1 million or 1 million plus clinicians. Um, Take us into what's next for Align and Embrace. What are you guys working on?
So, our, toward our movement to align over 1 million culturally responsive clinicians, we are creating an institute, a learning institute, to all of what Dr. Kara just said in terms of the significance of a community, of an institute, where folks can come and learn and stretch and grow. We are developing a series of modules, micro-learning educational modules, to which independent learning and learning in community with Dr. Kara and myself can take place. And that will include opportunities to practice, to try on things, to misstep, and to know that, to Dr. Kara's point, we're always evolving and learning. And when you can do that in a community that you feel honored and valued and respected, you will translate that into your practice with others. So this current module we're focused on is breaking barriers to bias, because we recognize that the unconscious and the cognitive biases that we all hold and that we all have is a beautiful place to begin having conversations, having these dynamic dialogues, because we all come to the table with them. Kara, Doctor, you want to build upon that?
Yes. I think you did a really good job talking about the Clinicians for Cultures learning series and also building a learning institute where it won't be limited to one type of learning, but we want to expand this because being culturally informed and responsive needs to be applied across different contexts and through different situations. So again, having a multi-prong and a multi-layered approach to your learning, knowing that you have guidance, knowing that you have daily support with activities that you can practice that have already been developed and aligned with the content that is being delivered as far as the learning series are concerned. That I think is going to be a tremendous value for individuals. And then being able to come back and ask questions. Ask Raquel and I live Q&A questions and have that interaction will also be a piece of the educational component. So we're really looking to continue to build and continue to scale that so we can make sure that we are supporting as many people as possible. In addition, we have different avenues that we can support organizations and individuals, which may be more on a individual level or organizational level where we can come in and we can support them as, with our consulting services, with our assessments, with our coaching, with, the systems change work that we do, workshops. There's a plethora of things that we can do. And we also know that that requires assessing what's truly happening with an organization. So when individuals and organizations are interested in working with us, they can reach out and then we can talk about what that would look like. But we have an array of services that are offered, and all of these details can be found on our website.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, beautiful. So you talked about clinicians for culture a little bit, and so I'm interested to understand what is clinicians for culture. What's the mission of the Clinicians for Culture program?
Clinicians for Cultures is really the vehicle, or the main vehicle we feel, to support us in building our movement, which is having over 1 million clinicians that are committed to advancing culturally informed and responsive practices. We have a movement that we're leading, and we recognize that movement has to have support in order to have the change that we're looking to see. And so what we want to do is provide opportunities for individuals to engage, to learn, to have practice opportunities, to build community so that we can have solidarity across all healthcare systems in advancing equity and reducing disparities and taking, again, the culturally informed and responsive approaches with our practice being infused with high levels of cultural humility. These are things that take practice. It's a journey. You never arrive. That's why it's really challenging sometimes when we hear the word cultural competency. It really gives the illusion that we have arrived somewhere and that we're competent in something, and is basically impossible to be competent in something you don't belong, let alone something you do belong to, because things change, you change, your culture changes, the culture you belong to changes. And so we want to really take away the idea that we can arrive somewhere and really embrace the idea that this is a journey and it is our responsibility as healthcare practitioners and providers, leaders within systems, to embrace it's a journey and call it a movement. So that way we are supporting each other again from a unified perspective.
I keep hearing the term cultural responsiveness. What does that mean to you as a clinician? What's the definition of that?
I define cultural responsiveness as the ability to demonstrate cultural humility, understand the strength and power that the individual in front of us holds, and create an opportunity to develop a relationship with them so that they could express to us what they need, what works for them, what's important to consider and from their perspective, from their cultural frame of being, how they heal, how they make decisions, what's important to them, so that I could be in a position to respond to that. I can position myself to respond from my clinical perspective coming, for instance, if they're coming for therapy, my cultural responsiveness is learning who they are and how they are and what's important to them in their healing journey, so that together we can co-design and collaborate on a wellness plan for them that they will commit to. And so then their outcomes of what they came, to therapy for is realized, is realized. Dr.
Yeah.
Kara, what would you say?
You hit it on the nail, and I would also add that it's important to consider what is the culture, because culture is really our collective beliefs, our experiences, and this is how we view the world, through this lens, through our cultural lens. So it's really important to recognize that everyone comes to the table with a different cultural lens as you work to support them, treat them, provide services to them, and do that in partnership. As Raquel mentioned, you collaborate, you make sure that you fully understand, because if we don't have a responsive lens and we don't have a responsive approach, what happens is we miss things, and then we're not being a service to those that we are supporting, because we may think from our lens that this should go like this, but we don't know when people come into our space where they're coming from. We don't know the resources that they have, and so we have to not assume, and we need to ask, and we need to seek to understand and take all things into consideration when it comes to culture, and recognize we may not get that in that first session or that first appointment, but do the best that we can with what we have, and asking and validating and making sure that we're exploring the necessary areas of an individual's life that is connected to their culture, as we're building out plans for treatment, plans for services, so that they have the most effective resources put in place at that particular time.
I wanted to add something here, because I think that the other part of cultural responsiveness is knowing the root cause analysis of why we're here, right? We can't ignore. A culturally responsive clinician cannot ignore why there are inequities, why there are health inequities, right?
Yes.
Because if you don't understand how we got here and what is holding the problem in place, which is a lot of the unconscious bias, which is a lot of the bias, the ways in which our systems are designed to treat, what informed our systems, who informed our systems, right? So here in America, our systems are informed from a European perspective. And so it takes intentionality to infuse culture, because at the same time, the United States is one of the most diverse places on the planet, right? We have so many different cultures and ways of being here from all over the world, that for us to be of best service, we have to take a worldview perspective.
Definitely. I love that. I'm so happy you brought that in. And also, being culturally responsive requires us to recognize and understand the culture in which we're operating from. Because when it comes in contrast with someone else's, then we may be trying to hold that status quo in place. And that's where the othering can occur. And that's where we, again, can have some missteps. So it's really an internal and external thing. And it really requires, as Raquel said, intentionality, and really holding it close to you and knowing this is a process, and showing yourself grace and understanding everyone is different, and seeking to learn and understand, which sometimes is difficult because we are, again, deemed as experts. We are deemed as having terminal degrees. When it's a terminal degree, that means you have learned it all. And we have not. We know the practice reinforces the learning. And that is
Mhm.
why we bring practical application into the work that we are doing, and doing it from a way that, again, infuses the research, infuses the evidence, and takes adult learning theory and practical application strategies into play. So we interweave this, and we do what we're asking people to do. We look at each practitioner, we look at each system as that they're individual, and we also seek to understand before we go in and we try to eradicate all of this change. We have to truly understand, number one, what does the system and what does the individuals or what do the individuals within the system want? And with the goal being culturally informed and responsive practices, and infusing cultural humility, and advancing equity, reducing disparities, improving patient outcomes, we can support them in identifying, in partnership, a plan and then providing support and services and creating containers and creating dialogues. And we model this. And that's what we do through a lot of our learning is model what's necessary as far as the exchanges that you need to have and pulling in multiple perspectives when you're supporting somebody. Not thinking you have all the answers on your own, but having a community. That's why we have supervision. That's why within our licensing, we have to have certain continuing education requirements because we know the field evolves. And so what we want to do is support that evolution from a way that offers practical strategies and also expands and elevates individuals' practices. And again, ultimately improving the patient outcomes.
Mhm.
Mm, I love that. So you've kind of given us an overview of clinicians for cultures as kind of what it is. Talk to me about what does the program look like? What excites you about the Clinicians for Culture program, and what can folks expect?
Sure.
Well,
I-
let me start by saying you said something a few moments ago, and it was really important. And you said it's important to know your cultural frame, the cultural frame that you operate in, the cultural frame that you come from and navigate the world with, right? Like I just love that you said that because um, it points to our first module in our
Yeah.
breaking barriers. You just hit it on the nail because the first module is my cultural frame, right? Supporting individuals, and we can do this as a system at a systemic level too, with recognizing who I am. What is my cultural frame? What cultural frame do I operate in? What dimensions of diversity do I hold, right? Both personally and professionally, that I bring to this work. So come on in. What were you going to say about the mod?
I was going to say, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the growth opportunities that exist. You know, as we do this, I think you and I continue to grow. We continue to elevate in how we show up for each other, for the people that we are sharing our information, our knowledge with. And I really love the fact that we are taking an approach that leverages technology so that we can really meet our learners, our participants, our practitioners, our systems where they are. We have not just one avenue, we really are taking adult learning theory and infusing it throughout all of our modules, making sure that not only do we have the audio and the visual as far as what people can expect and how people can learn, we also have practical strategies, applications, we have daily activities that people can access and select from. We also have the community wall where there's questions and we basically inspire conversations or we create questions, we create talking prompts so that people can discuss what it is they're experiencing, what are their thoughts, because this material, if it were easy, everyone would already be where we're trying to go. So this takes work and practice. And as practitioners, as people again with degrees that are terminal degrees, sometimes we forget that it all starts with us. And so being able to lean into feeling uncomfortable, you know, thinking we finally arrived somewhere and it's like, woo, we have so much more to learn. But doing that amongst a community that understands and that can support and that can, you know, as sometimes call you in, you know, that's important, right? That's how we expand how we show up. That's how we continue to grow in our cultural responsivity and being informed. Because again, if I can't know firmly where I sit and what my culture is, it's going to be very difficult for me to hold space for somebody else. And people need us to be able to hold space, no matter what level of practitioner you are, whether it's a physician, a nurse. And this is what creates barriers to people seeking care is when they don't feel the connection with their healthcare provider. They don't feel like they're heard. They don't feel like they're seen. They don't feel like they're treated fairly or equitably. It comes across. We may think that we're hiding it, but it does not. And so, how do we get to a place where we are removing those barriers? This particular program offers that, and it does it in a way that is quite unique in that it offers, again, the live Q&A. So you're learning, we're giving micro learning, so we're not inundating people with heavy material. You're having opportunities to reflect, to do some self, you know, examination And how do I feel about this? Where is this landing? We're also giving you opportunities to connect with other people to talk about it, because if you feel that way, someone else may feel that way, or someone else may have felt that way and can support you in what it is that you're feeling. And we also are monitoring that communication and inserting where we can be an added service and value. And then again, we're offering the live Q&A. So this is something that's infused through all of our learning modules that I think is a unique path to learning and to expanding knowledge in the areas of focus for our topics.
Absolutely. And we have an opportunity, right? We have an opportunity to cultivate culture, um, you know, for not a definite period of time, but an definite period of time, right? The journey never ends. And so I'm thinking around how we collaborated on creating the frame for the first several modules, right? The first one, again, who am I and how do I show up in this work, in my life? How am I navigating the world based on who I am? And then moving toward, okay, now I have a cultural frame, or I have a deeper understanding of my cultural frame. How do I think about the work? Right. So that leads us into cracking the code of unconscious bias. How am I thinking? And so I need to start thinking about what I'm thinking about, right? So that I'm being I'm doing self-analysis, I'm doing self-examination. I understand how to look at bias from a different lens so that I can crack the code and do something different on purpose. And that, takes us to the next level, which is, how do I have conversations about the work with clients, with my colleagues, with whomever, right? So that moves us into elevating engagement through dynamic dialogue. How do we keep the conversation going and flowing, even when I feel prickly, even when, right, I might be responding from a cultural lens that, has a heavy impact. How do I continue to have the conversation? How do I get to a point where I feel that I am now? I look forward to getting called in. I can't wait to learn where I can be better, how I can be better, even though it still makes me feel a way. I know that uncomfortable on the other side of that, I'm about to learn something. And so then, our cultivating connections, community, and culture allows me to be in a space with others and feel that feeling, understand what I'm feeling, and continue to stretch and grow and learn, and have that equitable impact on folks that we serve within our organizations and individually.
I love that. I think the greatest opportunity we have for growth is in this discomfort. And we strive to evoke awareness so that people can shift their paradigms and really think about, why is it that being uncomfortable has this negative connotation? Why is it that we feel like we have to have comfort in order to be effective as practitioners, when we actually know the contrast is what holds to be true? So I think
Yeah.
it's so important to acknowledge that and to hold that and to examine where these beliefs have been created, and are they really true? Is
Mhm.
this really true? Because most of the
Mhm.
time when we examine it, we realize that there is opportunity for growth and for shift in perspective and paradigms.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, comfort's a privilege, right? If we really think about comfort, right? When you are comfortable, you're in a position of privilege. And folks don't want to, and understandably so, it doesn't feel good, but folks don't want to um, flatten the power, as you mentioned, be okay with being uncomfortable, and understanding what comes as a result of that discomfort is growth. So, we got to move out of our area of privilege and want to be comfortable and lean into the discomfort and have the dynamic dialogue that shifts and changes lives.
Definitely.
Wow. I mean, you guys said quite a bit in such a short time, and I could go to a couple of different places, but I think one of the key questions that I'm excited for you to answer is, um, what do you want your participants to walk away with from this program?
I think it's really important that people walk away with an increased sense of understanding of what it takes to be culturally informed and responsive. Also, what it takes to infuse humility into their practice. And more importantly, that they understand the practical application piece and what that looks like, and they're willing to do the work. Because we can teach all day long until the sun comes up and the moon, the sun goes down and the moon comes up. The thing that's going to be the most important is the intrinsic motivation to really practice it and know that it's going to get prickly, it's going to get uncomfortable, and there's going to be growth on the other side that's going to make you, the practitioner, a better practitioner, that the systems will, it won't be fun. There's always going to be some resistance to change, but as the change comes in, the improvements happen, and that increases the health outcomes for the individuals that we are here to serve. It's an ethical principle, ethical imperative, strategic imperative to do this. And so, what we hope to do is number one, have the healthcare practitioners expand the way that they are serving and supporting people, that we're improving health outcomes, and that we are making a change in the world that is increasing equity, reducing disparities, and allowing people who may have not been seen, may have not been heard, may have not received positive outcomes for their healthcare journeys, that would change.
And I hope that participants, clinicians, wellness professionals walk away with wanting to come back for more. Walk away, and even if they don't come back to Align and Embrace, which will be here, of course, if they so choose our community. I hope that, though, more importantly, that folks walk away from this experience, this immersive learning experience, wanting more, wanting to continue to learn, wanting to continue to grow. You mentioned culture shifting and changing. It's always ever evolving. And so if you are going to be in this people serving, family serving system, then your commitment is your ethical responsibility, as you mentioned, is to continue the work, to continue working on yourself, right? That interpersonal level, continue to work on your relationships with the people that you work with and the people that you serve at that interpersonal level. Continue to look at your policies and your procedures and your practices within your organization from that multicultural, equitable lens, right? Who's at the table making decisions? Who's being left out? Who do we need? So that at that systemic level, if we're supporting different systems, then the structure can change, right? So this will take years and years and years and years. We may not ever get there when I'm still living, yet I hope that clinicians will then turn and educate others, right? So that it's sustainable and it's this continuous growth in ever evolving equitable healthcare system.
Yes. And I think the other part that's so important is that, yes, this is geared towards the ultimate outcome and also the individuals who are experiencing the growth, who are going through the program. The goal is for them to feel better or more confident in their practice abilities, that they know without a doubt that they are laying it on the line and leaving it on the table, that they've done everything. And it's not that they haven't in the past, but as one of my favorite poets, Maya Angelou, says, as we know better, we have to do better. And so that requires us taking some responsibility and some agency and learning, but also knowing that you don't have to go it alone and that you don't have to be judged through the process, that you have a community that will support you. And to Raquel's point, that you will continue on the journey, because it will be beneficial to your practice and it will be beneficial to the outcomes of those that you serve. And that's why we get into this, to serve people, to help people, and to make this world a better place.
Nice, nice. Um, how do you, how does a participant need to show up to your program to get the most out of it?
I would say come as you are, number one. And what I mean by that is wherever you are on your educational journey, wherever you are in your experience in the work, come as you are. Bring your skills, your gifts, your talents, your questions to this work. Of course, embodying, our ethical values in our healthcare industry. We, of course, will be cultivating community agreements amongst each other. Yet I know the foundations of our practice is respect, right? Is valuing and centering the humanity in everyone. So bring that with you and bring your ability to get curious and be stretched. Bring your willingness to learn, I should say, and take responsibility in your learning. Because it is your learning and your stretching and growing is priceless. What would you add?
I agree. The only thing I can think of is also doing your best just to remain open to the process and knowing that there doesn't have to be like this defined way and this defined outcome for how it looks, but that again is going to be something that's going to evolve. It's going to be a journey, and it may feel weird in the beginning or it may feel weird in the middle, and it all comes together and it all will come together to support you in your practice, meaning our participants. So I would say I would love to see participants come with trying to be as open as possible to something that may be not familiar, that may not feel warm and fuzzy, and trusting, that this is a process and knowing that it's a process that's ongoing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it really feels warm and fuzzy to be a recipient of service. So we can do some parallels with that, those feelings of discomfort and akin them to how our clients, how our patients may be feeling, right? And that then allows us to develop compassion and then humility around our practice naturally, right? Because if we're naturally feeling discomfort, then how others might feel, and having that common experience. And then I would add, come wanting to co-design future learning series, inform, align and embrace about what's important to you to learn in your practice. Some of the things that you might be experiencing will help co-design some of the modules so that they're tailored to your specific needs.
Yeah. It'll be great to have that type of information to inform how we move our learning, our products, and our services forward.
Yeah.
I just have one final question. Why choose the Clinicians for Culture program over some of the many other programs that are out there? How do you differentiate yourselves?
I would say, and I think we've talked about it a little bit before, Dr. Kara, around the research that has gone into this program, the needs analysis that has gone into the program. And while other training programs, I believe, do needs analysis, again, that root cause analysis has yielded us some really important information in that the number one question that clinicians ask, organizations too, is how do I know when I'm demonstrating cultural responsiveness? I go to trainings, I've been to workshops, I've experienced different modalities of receiving culturally diversity, equity type of trainings. And what we know from research is that 70% of training is training scrap. You lose it within, I don't know, 36 hours, you only retain about 7% of the learning. And so what Align and Embrace has done as an immersive opportunity is to connect the information with practical application, opportunities to try on and actually practice with other clinicians how to do the work, how to have the conversations, opportunities to come back and share what folks have tried and unpack it, ask more questions. So it's a continuous learning environment of practical applications and opportunities, so that they learn the actual skill and take just from theoretical knowledge and actually hone their skill and deepen their skill set around the work. Dr. Kara, what would you add?
I think we also bring an unparalleled passion to what it is that we do, collectively and individually. We bring a lot of experience, over 50 years to be exact, working in the field on multiple levels, again, across multiple contexts and across multiple countries. I think we both have, accelerated to high levels within our respective arenas within the field, from patient serving direct service to macro level work to leading and designing structures and programs. So I think that we have also demonstrated the capacity to not only be passionate about this, but also to deliver. And I think that we've already demonstrated that we can do what it is that we're asking other people to do. And we are not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk, meaning we also are on this journey and recognize it will never end. So we can relate, we can connect, we can support. And this is our lifelong journey. We're passionate. And I think that who we are individually and collectively also sets this business apart, because we're not playing about this. So we're serious. We're serious. We have a good time with it. We're passionate about it. And we know it's necessary. And if not us, then who?
Mm-hmm. And I'll add to that, like a bookend, is that when I started, what sets us apart with how will we know, right, when we're doing it? We have creative ways of supporting individuals and organizations with measuring and monitoring their success, right? That piece of evaluation and analysis so that they can tweak what's working and continue to do that, and also address any gaps that are certain to come with any change. So, how will we know? Practical application, skill building, and also helping them measure and monitor and adapt where needed. And so building individual data dashboards and organizational data dashboards so you could see your success along the way.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Clinicians for Cultures from the Align and Embrace team. If you'd like to learn more about what steps you can take towards advancing your practice of cultural responsiveness, check out our website at alignandembrace.com and join our Clinicians for Cultures community. If you like our show, remember to subscribe and share with others who may benefit. Let's build solidarity among clinicians, because together we can revolutionize healthcare.